The title should be 7 years of blockchain, and now on to something else. So that's John Cleese. I'm Henrik Hjelte. I'm from Chromaway, and also a new platform called Chromia. So I promise you will see some history, but also a future architecture that's completely new to this industry. So we started off actually this is from CoinDesk 2013. We started off with a project called the Color Coins project. This article mentions a great new opportunity for Bitcoin. What if Bitcoin could not only be used for money, but for tokens? So our CTO Alex, 1 year before this, had come up with this protocol to issue tokens. There was complete focus on the cryptocurrency aspects of blockchain at the time. But we had an open source project, and eventually it forked out into several projects, and we started the company in 2014. And this is my first business trip to Brooklyn. I took this picture, Bitcoin, not bombs. And this is a picture from the business travel at those times. There weren't that much money in this industry. So bunk beds, and as usually my co-founder Orr is on the phone. He's on the phone now as well, right? Of course, yeah. And Ido here. So we have, cheap travel, but still some nice dinners. So this is a dinner with the blockchain community. It's a dinner with Charlie Shrem and Vitalik Buterin, etc. And it kind of represents what happened with blockchain after this time. Vitalik, he got to wear cool T-shirts and go to the moon. Charlie Shrem went to jail. And we suffered an even horrible thing. We represent sort of the private blockchain, so we started to work with banks. And we thought that actually that was really cool at the time. This could be the shit. We're the first with a bank on blockchain. We did the Euro tokens, decentralized payment solution. I even coded back at that time, so it was fun. But a little problem is that we didn't get any more customers. We got one more customers on this platform because banks don't want to have the insecurity around the public blockchains, the fees and the low transaction speeds. We know that, of course. We had some ideas to solve that. So what we learned as well at this time is you cannot really iterate through a blockchain for a real application. You need to index information in a database to have fast retrieval. So we indexed the whole Bitcoin blockchain in a relational database. And that gave an embryo of an idea that we are now working on, so you will talk about later. So we actually started to work with enterprise projects and did private blockchains. We got a lot of attention for this project with the Swedish land registry around buying and selling real estate. So we were once known as a kind of a real estate startup, but we also worked with various other enterprises, etc. And our lessons from this is that it's a really slow industry. It takes time to get anything done. We also learned that setting up consortium isn't that easy. A lot of users just want the application, but not the hustle of setting up an organization. So we also came up with a new architecture for a blockchain. So we call it relational blockchain, combining a database with a blockchain. Because why? Blockchains aren't really good as databases. It's basically a ledger. That's not the sexiest thing ever. It's a list of transactions. Then it's basically like this. This is what I started coding in the 80s, btrieve. You have to add an index and a single btrieve that you had to work with. Then people actually came up with this relational database. I mean, the theory existed since the 70s when Cod wrote a paper, but Oracle and Microsoft SQL Server, etc., became more used custom in all the applications that we're building. Relational databases are used in basically every enterprise application across the world, and for a reason. So they're really good at preserving data over a long time. There's something called data independence. You start off with one way, but your applications work on a view of that data. It means that after some time, if you want to change things, you can do that because the application works on the view, but you can change how it's stored in the way behind. It's based on mathematics. Database is also designed to preserve correct data. That's what you do. You have constraints. You have references to other tables, etc. So it's designed to be a very, very mature technology for handling data. And what do we do in this business? We handle data, right? Blockchain is about writing and reading data. So could we make a distributed database? Yes, you can. There is something called distributed databases, but they become less secure the more nodes you add, because then it's enough to hack one node and you can get all the data, etc. So blockchains work in another way. We want to have it more secure the more nodes you add. So we came up with this idea. We integrate, the product's called PostChain. It's a permissioned relational blockchain. Works on top of these databases, Postgres, MySQL, etc. As a layer, and it integrates with the transaction mechanism of the database. So you basically code what is done in smart contracts, in stored procedures. We're using the declarative features of a database to preserve integrity. If you try to do something that's not valid in the database, it will be a vote to not accept the transaction. And since all the nodes have the same view of the data, that means that you will not accept the transaction. So it's a voting scheme built on top and integrated with a transaction mechanism. So we released the information about that on Money 2020, 2 years ago, I think. And sort of the selling proposition, of course, there are millions of developers that know this kind of technology, there aren't that many that knows ledgers. The databases have been around for a long time. So, selling propositions for a relational database, for an enterprise. Then something happened. So this is the team at the end of 2017. And suddenly, sort of we turned funky and started to talk about freedom and those kind of values and a fair world. And we decided we should do a public blockchain again for the public, something that really works, that's fast, easy, and powerful, and makes you be able to do really public applications. What do we mean with public applications? We mean that the users of the service have a say about it. You have an influence over how it's run and, of course, how your data is managed. So hosting and operation. So our project is called Chromia. We used to have the name Chromapolis, but we changed it 2 days ago to Chromia. And we say power to the public. That's the slogan. So one use case could be gaming. So now blockchain games, you talk about NFTs, etc. But if you read this quote, maybe you can guess who this is. It's usually someone in the audience that knows. Who is this that said this? What? Yes, Vitalik Buterin. So, but note, he's not talking about NFTs here. He's talking about control over the game. They changed the rules and stole his sword, or messed up with his spell. So the power wasn't with the users. The application developers now, they have complete power over the applications. So that's what we want to solve. And gaming is one of the applications that we think could be quite early. So games, but put the logic on the blockchain and the rules and the governance controlled by the players. Of course, we can have NFTs, but that's not enough. What happens when CryptoKitties close down the servers or remove from the app stores? You will have an NFT that's just some binary codes, completely meaningless. You need also have the security about the application, that you can use your digital assets for a long time. So that's a perspective we want to highlight. Social media is, of course, natural. We create the content, a VC somewhere reaps the benefits. And yeah, I don't need to argue a lot about that. You know all that. It can also be public applications for enterprises and for government, because a lot of the reasons why enterprises have not liked public blockchains was unpredictable fees, shitty performance, But do they really want to run nodes and set up consortium and governance organizations if they can have a secure application to share information? We don't think so. There's a lot of enterprise applications that can move out here. So how do you do this? Going back, this is a quiz on the relational blockchain. What's the best way to handle data? Would you prefer the way that's used behind Facebook, between SAP, between all the complex applications in the world, or you prefer a single list of transactions or a hash table? Or would you prefer to have a cloud operator controlling you or a blockchain? So if you answer A, you have the point about the relational database combined with a blockchain. So we have a consensus model that is basically based on this PBFT. That's the voting scheme between a set of nodes. So it's not proof of work, it's not proof of stake. We have a layer of staking, but it's not the same as a proof of stake. Your application is run on different providers. We think that will be mainly, of course, there'll be a variety, but sort of professional operators of hardware. And you as an application developer decides, I want this many nodes to run my application. So you have your own application, your own blockchain for your app. And then we anchor that into a higher level blockchain, and eventually we anchor also some evidence to the Bitcoin and Ethereum blockchain. In case there's a nuclear war and everything it fucks up completely, you can fork it on the moon or whatever you want to do. So we want to make something that's actually easy to fork as well. So it's like a marketplace of providers that you select as an application developer who should run your application. If you don't like a particular country, don't choose a provider from that country. So you have made this decision. And then you can hand over the decision-making to your users and make a public application. So we have ordinary users using applications, of course, on the phones. Power users can always read the information from the blockchain, of course. But we don't want sort of Raspberry Pis and gaming rigs run critical applications. So we have these service providers that provide those kind of services. But you should be able to replace them easily, and you should be in control of the whole system, right? So we kind of put the applications first. So the application developer can give away the control to the application, to the users, implement mini democracies to govern, accept patches. Maybe the users need to vote to accept them, etc. So dApps are really the first-class citizens here. Every dApp has its own blockchain. So the sidechain, run on a number of nodes, don't have to have an extreme amount, so we can have really good performance, etc. The dApps has its own tokens. You don't need to buy our token to play a game or anything. It's the application developer that pays for the hosting of your application. If you want to have a freemium model and put up something on an app store and make money on advertisement, you're free to do that. The users can start using your application. We do have a token, but that can be used for paying for hosting and transfer between applications, etc. So you decide on your monetization for your app, so free-to-play works, and the governance as well. You can set up various kind of governance with votes to accept changes. You can have political parties in the application. You can have democracies of various kinds. And we have something we call a developer-friendly programming model. So we have really elegant developers in the office. This is from the morning. This is Ulle. He's usually even more, but he has a tie and has this, I don't know the English name even. So elegant developers should have elegant languages. So that's why we designed a new programming language. It's basically, yeah, like if SQL is a frog, kissing it and finding a prince or something. So we have 1/6 of the code lines of SQL and general purpose programming as well. We added static type checking, so we added even more security. And you have the access to a database, which means super fast retrieval, etc. And writing as well. Yeah, this is about the code lines, so it matters as well for security, but that's one of the few laws in computer science that number of bugs correlates strongly to number of lines, etc. So if you can express something complex in a short lines of code, that's really good. Ricardo did a tic-tac-toe app in 3 hours in 140 lines of code with a complete logic to detect when there's a game win, etc., looking at coordinates and stuff like that. Also onboarding users in a table to I want to play and match them with the other people that want to play, etc. So it's very, very nice. I stole these slides from Ricardo as well. This is just a create operation. It's one line to create a sport event. We call it class rather than tables. So it's not very, very hard to learn this. I can see the value with Lisk or something you code in something you're familiar with, but sometimes as a developer you need to change as well and learn something new. That's called evolution, and sorry, we force developers to learn something new. An update is pretty nice syntax, I think. Kind of complex construct here. Yeah, I would argue it's a lot fewer code lines than other blockchains to do the update and restrict it to a certain person. Yeah, when Chromia, I would say, yeah. Data queries are delegated to a relational database. So one transaction in our system is one database transaction. If you're familiar with databases, one database transaction could be pay out dividends to all the shareholders, move the troops in the complete game. That's one transaction in our world. So it's not just move a cell of memory. So it's really, really performant on that aspect, as well as the confirmation time, since it's basically PBFT. It's a very fast blockchain, but there are other fast blockchains at this time, so that's not the complete unique. It's more about the ease of use of programming, the power of the language, and the stuff that we think is the unique aspects of the blockchain. We do have tokens. As an application developer, you pay for the application, not your users. You don't need to send the users to an exchange to get tokens to play your game or use your enterprise application or anything. So you do that, or whoever you delegate that to. Someone pays. Maybe the DApp, you can call it. You can use our token as well, the Chroma, to move assets between different applications. We'll also have an automatic contract if you want to move it to Ethereum, like a smart contract on Ethereum that you can use. Providers, these operators, they also need to do some kind of insurance. You can't just promise service level agreements, etc. So they need some tokens to put as a stake. It's not the same as the proof of stake, really, if I understand this rightly, but more like an insurance or collateral. Yes, IEO, that's an interesting title. Comes a little bit too early here. But that's the status of we are. We have a developer preview out, so you can try it out. So we did a workshop the other day. We're doing some sample dApps, social forum, a checkers game. We will have a testnet in some weeks, and a mainnet soon afterwards. But this is software, so it's hard to predict exact delivery times. But what you can try now is definitely to code on our new language. Yeah, so here it is. By these sample apps, they're all on chain, the social network. Complete logic is on the blockchain. Same with the checkers game to detect wins, etc. So they serve as a demonstration of the power that you can actually have really complex logic on the blockchain. And here is the IEO leak then, yeah. So we will do an IEO on KuCoin. I'm not allowed to say any details today, but that will come out later. So it's coming very, very soon. We want to broaden our community, so I think this is a good way. So you should try Rel. You just download the Docker and you can get started. It has a development environment and samples. Good documentation as well. Entrepreneurs, we want to support projects, of course. So reach out to us, and we might help you. Investors, yeah, the IO, of course. And the general public, as applications come up, social networks that can be used, that you can have a say in, it can be very attractive. But right now, that's a little bit early, so keep subscribing to our social media. And this is a serious slide here, warning for scammers. Since we are talking about IOs, people start to scam us. My mail is circulating with my name, and there'll be others. So do not, and this doesn't count only for our application, but do not ever send money over Telegram or just, you need to be very, 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 very careful in this business. So we are not sending out investments offer. I don't think other products do either. So public information is shared on our homepage, which is HTTPS, so we're in control of it, and of course by KuCoin. So that's my speech, and I'm happy to questions and stuff like that. Yeah, thanks.
No, great. No, I have a couple questions, and we'll open it up to the crowd. You talked about you starting with colored coins, and then you went to permission blockchain, and now you're launching Chromaway. Can you talk about how you've thought about the evolution of building on Bitcoin, and then to permission layer, and then to this, and just like how you got to that point, and why you think this is the right answer?
I mean, it's a little about Bitcoin. You know, it's kind of, this didn't really live up to the hopes of complete decentralization either, and control issues. There's a lot of, had a lot of political troubles in doing the development, and there's a lot of centralization in China with mining, etc., and a lot of risks in that way. So if you think about what can really be decentralization, which is fair, I think we have a good model. Proof of stake also has a problem that the rich have a larger stake in the system. And is that fair or not? So basically, that's something we thought about.
And you talked about that.
I mean, we were still, of course, fans of the other blockchains, Bitcoins. Yeah. That's where we come from, a lot of us.
Yeah, and you talked about a lot of the use cases early on are gaming related. The first app that's been built is tic-tac-toe. In the testnet, you've got checkers and a couple others. Is that where you want to go initially, and how kind of think about the low-hanging fruit for what you're building on?
Yeah, it's kind of a low-hanging fruit in a way, because gaming companies are a lot faster than banks, and you know, it can also prove the point. We can have a great performance. If it works to have like a massive multiplayer online game, it will work for payments for little countries like Sweden. So you can prove a point that we can scale, and it can prove also give us the longevity to show that this is a stable platform. But as well as it's really nice to have the control issues. It can be an experimental ground. But I think that we might have quite soon some enterprise or applications as well.
On that note, how do you think what you're building compares to something like EOS, right? Which is currently targeting that similar market now.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of close because we have good performance, but we have our unique thing is a better programming model, more power as a developer. So, and I think developers want to have nice, good, attractive tools, like a good experience. That's what happened. You can always say, oh, PHP, that's the biggest language on the net. No one will ever displace it. And now here, Lisk is talking about JavaScript. He just came from that, because it's a little bit better, a little bit faster. And JavaScript passed by Ruby on Rails, and the evolution is always happening. So nice languages, that's, I think, something that,
Yeah, that's fair. And I mean, how do you think about getting those developers on board? Is it through a token bounty? Is it through incentivizing them through the treasury? How do you think about kind of, now that you're competing in a multi-blockchain world and you've got you're competing for developer mindshare, how do you think about going from zero to kind of owning that mindshare and getting people to build on you?
Yeah, I mean, first, probably by having a great product and a great experience. I don't think that you have a developer background myself, and it's not like you can bribe a developer completely to be on your platform with tokens. And it's kind of hard to set up bounties, etc., and those kind of solutions. We will try a little bit of stimulation, but also more like stimulate projects and entrepreneurs in various ways with support. with funding.
Yeah. I have one last question, then I'll open it up. You mentioned Sweden. Y'all were involved in the e-krona initiative. Can you expand on that, what you learned from that, where that might go in the future?
Yeah, they're kind of cool. The central bank has been looking at Bitcoin since 2014 or something.
Okay.
I met them the first time. So they had just a call for papers for various solutions to do electronic currency, but they haven't decided if it's going to be a cryptocurrency or a more centralized way.
Yeah.
So we had a proposal where we actually can migrate from a centralized to a decentralized using our technology, and we worked with another company to file a tender for that. But
are you optimistic that that may happen, or is it just exploratory?
That's just my personal thought. I thought that now it will not happen, but then I've changed my mind because they have it's basically a power struggle between the banks and the central banks. We're not using cash anymore in Sweden, so I don't carry notes when I'm at home, and that means that the banks are issuing all the money, but the central bank wants to issue their money as well. So I think it will happen. Yeah.
Okay. I'll open it up. Does anybody have any questions? Yes.
So what consensus method are these public blockchain using?
It is a mixture. At the core, it is a PBFT version that's practical Byzantine fault tolerance. It's basically something that's used for enterprise blockchains. It's a voting scheme, and every node votes if a transaction is valid or not, and you see the votes. They're synchronized in a network, and once you have reached a threshold, the transaction will be confirmed. So it's a formula, but say over half. So that's at the core. But you will pick the providers. So unless you believe in a world conspiracy, if you pick providers from your home country, someone you know, some reputable companies in different parts of the world, it's very, very unlikely that they are in a big conspiracy against you and can take over the main part of the network. So that's kind of where it comes from. It can also be resilient to political pressure if you don't pick all the nodes in the US, don't pick all the nodes in Europe. So, and then we are, that's basically at the core of this.
You said that they wouldn't conspire against you, but to push on that a little bit, could they conspire against you and just change what you're doing without affecting the entire blockchain?
So even if they collude, it will only fuck up your application, basically, because you have your own application. So, but it's linked also to a master chain, and that master chain is time-stamped or hashed into the Bitcoin blockchain and the Ethereum blockchain.
So they'd only be able to manipulate each block as it comes in, not your historical, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm answer it in a good way. I'm actually not the inventor or anything. We have the clever people sitting around here. So.
Before I let them off stage, anyone else? Any questions? All right, perfect. We've got a break for lunch, and we'll be back.